Meet Clyde, a tinkerer who loves fixing things and building low gadgets. His daughter has learned from him and made a bracelet for him. Now she's excited to make another one, this time for her mom. Clyde's wife calls out to him and asks him to open the door. When Clyde does, he is suddenly knocked to the floor as two burglars storm into the house. They quickly tie his hands and begin robbing the place. One of the burglars, named Darby, coldly tells Clyde, "You can't fight fate," before stabbing him. The other burglar, Rupert, tries to leave because he's scared, but Darby tells him to shut up and stay. Clyde is forced to watch helplessly as Darby rapes his wife, then murders her, and finally, she dies. When Clyde's young daughter walks into the room, she tragically suffers the same horrible fate, and finally, she dies. Career-focused prosecutor Nick talks to his colleague the next day about Clyde's case. Everything went wrong in court last night because a judge ruled that the DNA evidence from the crime scene could not be used. Because of this, Nick decides to offer a plea deal instead of risking a full trial. He tells his colleague, "Some justice is better than no justice at all." Nick then meets with Clyde, who hands him some notes he believes could help the case. But Nick barely looks at them. He tells Clyde that Darby has agreed to testify against Rupert. With Darby's help, Rupert will go to death row, while Darby will only serve up to 5 years in prison. Clyde, already broken and traumatized, can't believe what he is hearing. He begs Nick not to take the deal, but Nick tells him the decision has already been made. He explains that the justice system is not about what is true, it's about what you can prove in court. Nick says this outcome is a win for them, which feels like an insult to Clyde. In the courtroom, the situation is staged to make Rupert look like the main villain. Darby smirks and quietly makes fun of Nick's wife, hinting that she could be next. He signs the plea deal without hesitation. Outside, Nick speaks to the press about the decision. Darby sarcastically thanks him for being on his side, saying it's great when the system works. Nick watches him leave, realizing just how unfair everything has been. After a long day, Nick goes home to his wife, Kelly. To calm himself down, he talks gently to their unborn daughter. 10 years pass. Nick's daughter is now grown, but Nick is still extremely busy with work. Once again, he has to skip his daughter's school recital, and Kelly is upset that he keeps missing moments in their daughter's life. Today is also the day Rupert is scheduled to be executed by lethal injection, and Nick attends the execution with his co-worker, Sarah. Instead of being at the recital, he watches Rupert's final moments. Rupert's last words are that he wasn't the one who killed Clyde's family. This comment makes both Nick and Sarah uneasy. Rupert is then injected with the usual 3 drugs, which should kill him quickly and painlessly. But something is wrong. Rupert starts shaking violently, screaming, then suffering in agony, and finally he dies. The warden insists that this has never happened before and that they are not responsible. A police officer arrives with a bottle labeled "Can't Fight Fate." Nick immediately recognizes the phrase. The police look into Darby and track down where he's been staying. At Darby's place, he is sniffing powder drugs when he suddenly gets a call. The voice on the phone is distorted, but the caller knows everything about him. Darby starts panicking. The voice tells him to look outside, where he sees police cars surrounding his home. Terrified, Darby runs out, firing at the officers. He gets another call telling him that if he wants to stay out of jail, he must drop his gun and head toward an abandoned factory. He listens. On the way, he finds a police officer asleep in his car. Darby steals the car, holds the officer at gunpoint, and forces him to drive. They stop at a deserted area. Darby orders the officer to get on his knees, but before he pulls the trigger, he gets another call and learns that the voice helping him escape is Clyde. Darby tries to shoot Clyde, but the gun is rigged. It injects him with a paralyzing serum. Darby can't move, but he is fully conscious and can feel everything. Clyde drags him to his warehouse, straps him in place, and tells him that he is about to feel pain like never before. Clyde explains that now Darby will finally understand what it felt like to be completely helpless, just like Clyde was 10 years ago. Clyde says the same line Darby once told him, "You can't fight fate." He turns on a camera to record everything, and finally, he begins to cut Darby apart piece by piece. Nick and Sarah discuss the lethal injection being tampered with. Nick doubts Darby could have done it. He's not smart enough. Later, the police find Darby's body, cut into 25 pieces. They call Nick to inform him of the horrific scene. Sarah points out that Clyde is the only person with a clear motive. They discover that Clyde has sold all his belongings over the years and bought several strange properties, including the warehouse where Darby was found. Police rush to Clyde's home. Clyde is calmly undressing when he hears the sirens. He walks outside completely naked and lets them arrest him. On the way to the car, he gives Nick a cold, threatening look. Inside Clyde's home, officers find law books and a torn newspaper photo of Nick shaking Darby's hand. Clyde sits in an interrogation room, but the police have no real evidence. They can only hope he will confess. Meanwhile, Nick's daughter finds a DVD that she thinks is a recording of her recital. She begs her mom to watch it now, but Kelly insists they wait for Nick. The girl puts it in anyway. It is not her recital. It is the video of Clyde cutting up Darby. Nick storms into the interrogation room and confronts Clyde. He turns off the live feed and pretends to agree with Clyde, acting as if Clyde did the right thing. Clyde hints that he had planned for years how to kill Darby and Rupert. Nick takes this as a confession and prepares to leave, but Clyde stops him. He calmly explains Nick's daily routine in detail, showing that he has been watching him. He tells Nick to sit down, even as Nick insists the conversation is over. Clyde says nothing he said is a real confession because he never directly admitted to killing anyone. He also points out that owning the warehouse means nothing since he owns many properties and can claim someone else set him up. Nick insists they know he's guilty, and Clyde throws his own words back at him. It's not about what you know, it's about what you can prove. Clyde then says he will give a full confession if Nick gives him something in return, a bed. Nick refuses angrily. Later, Nick's boss, Jonas, scolds him for not taking the deal. A full confession in exchange for a mattress is actually a great deal when they have no evidence. Nick believes Clyde is just playing mind games, but Jonas tells him again to take the deal. Clyde eventually gets his mattress, which other prisoners already seem interested in stealing. The warden is not happy about giving Clyde special treatment. In court, Nick argues that Clyde should not get bail. Clyde says he is a law-abiding citizen and that the prosecution has zero evidence to keep him locked up. The judge seems ready to agree with Clyde. Nick argues that Clyde promised to confess, but he did not. At that moment, Clyde starts clapping, mocking the judge for believing anything he said. He insults her several more times before guards drag him out. Bail is denied. Later, Clyde tells Nick that the tape he sent was good triumphs over evil, and as promised, he admits it was him in the video. He says he has one more confession, but once again, he wants something in return. Nick is sick of Clyde's demands. Clyde says he wanted a 20-ounce medium-rare steak for lunch and an iPod. Before Nick leaves, Clyde adds that he will give up the location of Bill Reynolds, Darby's lawyer. Nick returns to Sarah, and she informs him that Bill has been missing for 3 days. Clyde speaks directly into the camera, talking to Nick. He tells him that if he wants Bill to stay alive, he must give Clyde everything he asked for the next day at exactly 1 p.m. The following day, the steak Clyde requested is delivered to the prison. But 5 minutes before 1 p.m., the warden decides to double-check with the prosecutors to make sure everything is in order. Because of this delay, when Nick and his team finally arrive at Clyde's cell with a meal, they are 8 minutes late. Clyde still stays calm and tells them where Bill is located. He also explains that the 1 p.m. deadline was never for him. It was for Bill. Nick instantly understands and rushes to a helicopter. They take off toward the location while Clyde sits in his cell, listening to music on his iPod and enjoying the steak with his cellmate, who had threatened him earlier. They seem to suddenly become good friends, but Clyde is only pretending. He really wants the T-bone from the steak for a specific purpose. Clyde turns up the music loudly and hands the controller to the cellmate to distract him. Then he stabs him in the neck. Guards quickly arrive at Clyde's cell, and the warden is furious. Meanwhile, Nick finds Bill buried underground with an oxygen mask. Sadly, Bill is already dead. It took Nick 15 minutes to reach the location from the prison, which means that if Clyde had gotten his lunch on time, Bill would still be alive. A moment later, Nick gets a message from Sarah, telling him Clyde murdered his cellmate and that the warden is moving Clyde to solitary confinement. Nick goes to see Clyde in solitary confinement. He asks Clyde what the point is of killing all these people. Clyde answers that he wants to make every person responsible for their actions. Nick gives Clyde his daughter's bracelet and asks him if his family would be proud of the things he's doing for revenge. Clyde replies that his wife and daughter cannot feel anything anymore. They are dead. Nick and Jonas meet with a government official who has more information about Clyde. The official explains that Clyde is a natural tactician, someone who plans everything perfectly and can kill people without even being in the same room. If Clyde is in prison, it's because he wanted to be there. The official also says Clyde killing his cellmate was a random. That man was a pawn, a piece on the board that Clyde needed to remove. He warns them to look for the next piece. He tells Nick the harsh truth. The only way to stop Clyde is to go into his cell and shoot him, because otherwise Clyde cannot be stopped. Clyde is targeting everyone involved in the case from 10 years ago. As he leaves, he gives them a chilling final line. If Clyde wants you dead, you're dead. With this new information, Nick and Jonas go to the judge and ask to violate Clyde's civil rights and block all visitation for safety reasons. The judge agrees and signs the document. Suddenly, her phone rings. When she answers it, the phone explodes. Everyone is shocked. Nick goes to see Clyde again in an interrogation room. He asks Clyde about his accomplice and what do you want from all this. Clyde gets angry because Nick still doesn't understand the point. Clyde explains that if he only wanted revenge, he would have killed Nick's family over the last 10 years. Clyde gives Nick one final chance. Release him by 6 a.m. tomorrow, or everyone will die. He is then escorted to maximum solitary confinement by several guards. Nick and Sarah look through documents at another prison, searching for any clues that someone on the outside might be helping Clyde. They find nothing. Sarah starts wondering if their decision to make the plea deal with Darby all those years ago was a mistake. Nick insists it was the right decision. The DA staff stays at work until 6 a.m. Then Nick tells everyone to go home and rest. But when Sarah gets in her car, it explodes. All the cars explode, killing everyone, including Sarah. Nick realizes someone is helping Clyde because he could not have set this up from inside the prison. 6 officers have died. Nick and Jonas meet with the mayor. She cannot understand how one man in prison could cause so much destruction. She assigns 2 personal security guards to them. Nick sends his wife and daughter away to a safe place and tells them it's just a vacation. He tells them to use no credit cards, no cell phones, nothing that could reveal their location. When Nick returns to his house, he sees that one of his framed newspaper articles has been moved, which means someone has been inside. Back at the prison, Clyde is brought out for exercise time. Nick and a detective approach him. Nick is furious and attacks Clyde, beating him. Clyde only replies that it's good Nick is angry. He's just getting started. The detective pulls out a gun, but Nick stops him. Clyde warns that what Nick is about to see will be biblical. At Sarah's funeral, Jonas says they caused this by trying to play the system. Nick still believes they did the right thing, but he is starting to doubt himself. As they drive away, a man dressed in black controls a military drone armed with machine guns, an EMP device, and rockets. The drone disables the cars, forcing them to stop. Jonas' car is hit with anti-tank rounds and blown to pieces to make sure Jonas is dead. The mayor cannot believe Nick allowed the situation to get this far. She wants to fire him, but to protect herself from the media, she promotes him to district attorney instead. She also orders a citywide lockdown. No one is allowed to move freely. Nick receives an email from one of Sarah's contacts. It contains information about the real estate Clyde purchased. Nick looks at every property sold in Philadelphia in the last 10 years and compares the prices. He discovers that Clyde owns a small garage not far from the prison. He and the detective go to check it out. Inside, they find a hole in the floor. It is a long tunnel Clyde dug that leads directly into the prison. Clyde made a tunnel entrance into every single cell. That means killing his cellmate was part of the plan, because Clyde needed that cell empty. The detective checks Clyde's cell, but Clyde is gone. Disguised as a janitor, Clyde has already slipped past security and entered City Hall. Nick and the detective learn Clyde has hidden cameras everywhere, including inside Nick's house. They also find a quote from Von Clausewitz about the center of gravity, meaning the target Clyde wants to destroy most, in this case, City Hall. Clyde plants a napalm bomb to kill the mayor, who is about to start a security meeting. Nick and the detective arrive shortly after. They must move quietly so Clyde doesn't know they are there. They find Clyde's cleaning cart on the 5th floor, just under the conference room. They find a suitcase and believe it contains the bomb. The bomb squad opens it and sees that it is activated by a cell phone and could explode at any moment. Meanwhile, officers watching Clyde's warehouse see him pull up and alert Nick. Clyde goes through the tunnel and watches the meeting from his camera setup. He grabs his phone and climbs up into his cell. When he enters, Nick is waiting for him with a gun. Nick asks Clyde to stop and offers him a chance to walk away from this. Clyde asks if Nick is here to make one last deal. Nick says he finally understands what Clyde was trying to teach him. I don't make deals with murderers. Nick begs Clyde not to do this. He says it's a choice Clyde will have to live with for the rest of his life. Clyde apologizes and presses the number to activate the bomb. Nick walks out and says that the rest of his life is actually about 25 seconds. The detective locks the tunnel door behind Nick. Nick has placed a suitcase bomb under Clyde's bed. Law-abiding citizen movie ends with Clyde sits down then looks at his daughter's bracelet one final time before his entire cell explodes. And finally, he dies. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.